What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to a Boris Karloff collection review. Perhaps some of you have seen on my Instagram, Mr. Dan Horror Hot Wheels, recently that I watched The Tower of London, and I had a few pics of Karloff and Basil Rathbone up there because I really enjoyed that film, and that's one of the ones we'll talk about in this 5-film Boris Karloff collection, where it says 5 chilling horror classics. So, of course, because it's Karloff, they're going to say horror, but not all of these are really horror. Including the first one, which is much more of a crime film. Real quick, let me just go over them. This is a really interesting set to have, and there's a few other sets out there if you want to take a look on eBay and see what you can find of 3 films, or this one is 5 films. These are lesser-known Karloff films, okay? So we're not talking Frankenstein or anything like that. And it's interesting to go back and find some of these lesser-seen Karloff films because he's always good, he's always entertaining, and it's always interesting to see what he brings to each film. And there's some really great co-stars in some of these. And before I do that, go ahead and check out my Comedy of Terror metal sign back there, starring Karloff and Basil Rathbone. I'll be rotating. I've got tons of metal signs you guys have never seen yet, so I'll be sort of rotating those in the background in future reviews, so look for those. So we have, let me just give you an overview here before we get into it. The Night Key from 1937, an hour and 18 minutes. Karloff is an inventor. The Tower of London, 1939, an hour and 33 minutes. Karloff is an executioner. The Climax from 44. Karloff is a mad doctor, an hour and 27 minutes. The Strange Door. Karloff is a servant to an evil nobleman, an hour and 21 minutes. The Black Castle, 1952, an hour and 22 minutes. Karloff is a doctor. And this also came in this pretty cool slipcover. There you see Karloff, and it has like a shadow, and I guess you would say the plastic is frosted, so it kind of gives the appearance of fog, and you see each of the 4 of the faces anyway of the different characters in the cutout there. So it's a pretty cool set. So we'll start with my least favorite and work my way up, okay? And I don't know if I even have these worked out in my mind yet, so here we go. And this one might actually sort of depend on mood, to be honest with you. But I'm going to go with Night Key from 37 as number 5. But if you're in the mood for a crime film that's an hour and 18 minutes, I mean, this one goes by. It's very easy to watch. And Karloff did make a number of crime films, including some even with Bela Lugosi. But he ignites the screen as an ingenious inventor of a security system who is kidnapped by a gang of burglars and forced to help them commit robberies. That's pretty much a pretty good description. The depiction of the technology is rather quaint. And of course, the studio, even in the trailer for this movie, which is a straight-up crime movie, they had the reference Frankenstein with the science connection, because he's like an inventor in this one. So yeah, like as soon as I guess the security system is breached, like when you try to open a door, force a window, it gives the police some coordinates. And it's actually kind of cool the way to depict this, because there's a big wall with all these numbers on it, and then they just cross-reference it to the store, and they can get a patrol car over there real quick. Well, Karloff is kidnapped, and his daughter and his friends on the police force have to try to find him as these criminals kind of realize the gold mine that they have, and they're using it to sort of, selectively rob different stores around town. It's pretty good. My 4th favorite, I'm gonna go with, let's say, the next 2 you could almost switch very easily, but I'm gonna go with The Climax next. 1944. Now this is Karloff's first color feature. He's terrifying as a mad doctor whose insane jealousy over a beautiful opera singer may once again drive him to murder. Yeah, so this and the trailer for this references the Phantom of the Opera, and so Universal wasn't trying to hide it. As a matter of fact, it's filmed partially in the Phantom of the Opera set, which is the largest, one of the oldest remaining movie sets still in existence and use, at least according to IMDb. Now, that set was actually created for the original Lon Chaney silent film, but then later reused for the subsequent Universal film. And, it does bear some resemblances to the Phantom of the Opera. This film does not really have a kind of a gothic horror feel, though. It's more of like a murder. There's some murder, but more of like a mystery, suspense, thriller. Karloff's evil doctor character uses hypnosis to get what he wants. And he basically becomes obsessed with a new opera singer whose boyfriend is played by Turhan Bey, who was in Doom of the Mummy, okay? So he's very eager to promote his sort of fiance, and I believe she's played by Susanna Foster. And she does have like a phenomenal voice. As soon as Karloff hears it, he knows that he has to do something because he's still trying to protect the legacy of his late wife, who performed this particular opera that they're now going to dust off for this young ingenue. I believe that's how you say that word. And I know I'm a little bit all over the place here, but by the way, Karloff had something to do with the fact that his wife is no longer in the film. She's dead. Jesus, just come out and say it. I think they figured that out. Anyway, but there's a scene early in the film where he actually puts his hand on his wife's throat and he says, I now have in my hand everything that you have. And he's like leaning over her as he's doing it. And yeah, he's pretty scary in this. He's pretty terrifying. And what he is he's the doctor to the opera, because the opera was a big deal back then. I mean, they show the actual king come to watch a performance when they're getting ready to try out this or bring back this opera that used to be in this sort of wheelhouse of the deceased opera singer. The media's there to get like a little sneak peek. But what they don't know is that Karloff has hypnotized this young lady and given her an atomizer, you know, one of the little things they squeeze to sort of coat their throat before a performance. And every time she sees that, she's going to be reminded of the fact that he basically told her that her voice is not going to be any good. So during her big sort of debut rehearsal, she starts out okay, but then she loses her nerve and she can't figure out why. And her boyfriend kind of figures out eventually sort of what's going on, and he plans a big climax. And it's just, will Karloff be able to foil this or not? Karloff also has an assistant played by Gail Sondergaard, who's kind of scary and sinister looking herself. She can make a pretty good mean face, that's for sure. But she was really dedicated to both Karloff and his previous wife. So in the end, it's like, well, who is she sort of, what side is she going to come down on, so to speak? Yeah, the sets look great. I believe some of the inside shots of like the hallway were both matte paintings and actual sets combined, and they look really good. So it's a good looking film. Like I said, it just doesn't have that gothic type horror feel, apart from a few nighttime scenes on cobblestone streets in the rain when people are being stalked and so forth. But it's also a pretty fun look into the opera world. I mean, there's a lot of really catty personalities involved. There's an older opera singer who is not wishing this young lady luck at all. She's downright rude. And then one of the male stars comes in and says something to her like, hey, do you remember back when you were young? And he scurries away, and she's gonna like whack him. I mean, and after her initial audition, before the big one where she cracks, her boyfriend, once again played by Turhan Bey, is so excited and jazzed up, he's going to buy her a present. Well, there's there's a jewelry store right across from the opera open till midnight, which seems improbable. But the guy who's the janitor sort of says, oh, yeah, a lot of people will come out and try to buy their sweetheart's jewelry or some of the performers' jewelry. And the guy has a clause. You can return it, but you only get half price back. So he keeps reselling the same items. I thought that was pretty funny. So it kind of gives you a glimpse into like the whole world. And it's also cool because like the doorman and everyone, they're on the side of the opera. I mean, they're really a part of it. They're cheering on this young lady and hoping that she's successful. It's just kind of a cool thing. Pretty decent climax. You know, there's a few things I left out on purpose that will be revealed at the end, but pretty good. Certainly not a classic like The Phantom of the Opera, but an interesting film nonetheless, and directed by George Wagner, who directed The Wolfman. Okay, my third favorite is going to be The Strange Door. Now, this was pretty entertaining. This one stars Charles Laughton. If you know Charles Laughton, you know he was married to Elsa Lanchester in real life. Yes, there is a scene where he's eating, and he's really shoving it in there, in case you were wondering. But he plays Sire Elaine de Malatroit, and Sally Forrest plays this young lady, Blanche de Malatroit. Now, Laughton wants to bring a strange person to his castle to sort of pair up with Sally Forrest's character to sort of drive her insane. And he has reasons for doing that. So him and some of his goons, one of which is played by Michael Pate, who plays a character named Talon, set up a confrontation in a bar. They go to this down and dirty sort of pub, and they watch some of the locals, and they see this guy played by Richard Stapley as Dennis de Bellew, yeah, I believe. They see him just, he's just drinking and getting into fights and stuff. So they're like, this is the guy. So they kind of set it up where he shoots a guy who later turns up to not be dead because it was a setup. And they basically kidnap him, bring him to the castle and say, we've got a proposition for you. And he's like, no thanks. He's like, thanks, but no thanks. And Charles Lawton's like, yeah, aren't you kind of a wanted man now for murder? So they kind of set it up like he's going to be with Blanche. And they kind of detest each other at first, but then she realizes like she kind of needs this guy's help. And all the while you have Karloff, who's like very sort of a servile type of assistant, skulking around, listening behind doors. He's got like peepholes he looks through, that sort of old trope. And there's a device used to torture people that is pretty ingenious. And once those gears get set into motion, and it actually has gears, now that I think about it, it's like a water wheel with gears, and it wouldn't be a pleasant thing to be trapped in. Let me tell you that. But once that gets set into motion, we have to figure out whether Karloff is going to be on their side and help them or not. Will the Richard Stapley character sort of come around and sort of redeem himself, or will he sort of be the cad that Charles Lawton thought he was? And why does he want to drive this young lady crazy? And who is the mysterious man locked up in the basement? Also appearing in this is Alan Napier, Alfred from the original Batman series, who I didn't know. I think he was 6'6". I didn't know he was that tall. But he plays Count Grassin. I'll put a picture up here. Very regal and noble looking. I like the costumes in this are pretty good, and I'll talk a little bit more about the costumes in a minute. Some of these guys do a pretty good job of looking intimidating, even though they're wearing poofy shirts and things. But this one was kind of fun. I did enjoy it. Very, it goes by pretty quick. Good conclusion. Karloff is fun. It kind of keeps you guessing as to his character's motivation. Okay, my second favorite film in this set is The Black Castle, starring Karloff as Dr. Meissen, and also Lon Chaney Jr., which was a nice bonus, as Gargon. Now, with a name like that, he's probably not going to be a good guy. And he's actually like an evil henchman in this. An evil mute henchman. He doesn't have a tongue, so therefore he's mute. And he's very sadistic in this. He's a henchman. He does whatever the evil count tells him to do. And despite the fact that this film does have Karloff and Lon Chaney Jr., the real stars of this, our two leads, are Stephen McNally as the evil count, Carl von Bruno, and Richard Green as Sir Ronald Burton. There are two other counts in here who seem to be subservient to Count Carl von Bruno, played by Michael Pate once again, and John Hoyt as Count Steichen. Michael Pate plays Count Ernst von Melkar. Yeah, this one was a lot of fun. And Stephen McNally is quite good as the villain in this. And I'm looking at this guy going, I just saw him in something, and it turned out to be an episode of Rawhide. Not surprisingly, as I'm working my way through the series, a lot of people are in that show. I don't know if it was the greatest episode, but his character's name was Sky Blackstorm, so that's something at least. But yeah, he's quite good in this. He looks the part. He's got a scar and an eye patch. You do get to see him without the eye patch at one point. Like, once again, they're all wearing these poofy shirts with collars, and somehow they're still menacing. I don't know how. They do go on a hunting trip, because this is like in the Black Forest, and he fashions himself as like a big game hunter. And he's wearing this like leather overcoat thing. It's actually pretty cool looking. So essentially, Richard Green plays a guy, very simply. They set this up in the beginning. A couple of his friends went on a trip to this castle, or ended up at this castle and never came back. So he's going to go under there under an assumed name and try to find out what goes on. And the evil count kind of figures out that he's there for some kind of reason other than what he's stated, but he enjoys it. He likes to mess with people and have games. He likes to have big parties and take people on hunting trips. He comes across as this sort of bon vivant kind of guy, but he's got some sinister purposes. And even though Richard Green is like playing a Sir Ronald Burton, at one point he actually rebukes his servant for getting too familiar with him. He's a decent guy, so their driver picks them up. They're going to the castle. They stop at an inn, and they invite him over because he's like, he wants to know, like, hey, what's going on? We're going to see your boss, this count. Tell me what he's like. Well, the two other counts see that, and Michael Pate's character comes over just as they give the driver a big piece of chicken that he's like, this is the best meal I'm about to eat. You know, I've never had a meal like this. Just as he's about to eat it, Michael Pate comes over and smacks it away. So then they have a duel, and Ronald, Richard Green's character, Sir Ronald, gets the best of Michael Pate. And then we find out later that Michael Pate's character works for the Count. His Count is sort of subservient to our lead villain. So that's kind of a fun kind of relationship, antagonistic relationship that is sustained throughout the film. And, you know, he's just like an evil kind of guy. There's a countess there, Elga von Bruno, who seems to be there against her wishes, married to Stephen McNally's character. And, you know, she kind of realizes that Ronald Green is there for some other kind of purposes, and that he might be a sympathetic figure that she can trust in. But first they have to survive the castle and Lon Chaney Jr.'s character and a hunting trip with a leopard, okay? And as the Count explains, he had this leopard imported. So the leopard is released into the forest, and there's a pretty good scene where the leopard appears to get the best of somebody. And it looks pretty good. It's not like it's not like someone rolling around with a stuffed animal. It actually looks pretty good. So that's a pretty contentious scene. And there's a scene where they go to see the leopard in a cage, and Lon Chaney's character just antagonizes it. It's actually upsetting to watch because, you know, it's obviously a real big cat in there, and he's like raking his club across the cage and stuff. Yeah, he's a really not a nice guy. Oh, by the way, there's also an alligator pit under one of the windows because it's that kind of movie. This one's a lot of fun. Karloff's character in this, you know, this is one of those ones. Maybe it could have been played by someone else, and it wouldn't have changed the movie that much. He's kind of more of in a supporting role here, and you don't really know how sympathetic he's going to be to the end. And coming in at number 1, my most favorite film from this collection is The Tower of London, 1939, directed by Roland V. Lee. This stars Basil Rathbone as the Duke of Gloucester, who's aided by his club-footed executioner Mord, played by Boris Karloff. He eliminates those ahead of him in succession to the throne, then occupied by his brother, King Edward IV. And there's also, I think it's Henry Tudor, who is a banished heir to the throne that he also has to contend with. Let me read you the tagline. Crafty, cruel, cold as the headman's axe that hacked a path over maimed bodies of brothers, sweethearts, children to the throne. Yes, you know, this is the time when they married off even young children to other different royal families to strengthen their power. So, you know, if they're in the way, they're in the way. And Mord, Boris Karloff's character, says to Basil Rathbone, "You're more than a king, more than a man. You're a god to me." So he basically will do whatever Basil Rathbone's character wants him to do. And he's got a little cabinet with all these little figures of all the people in his way to the throne. Every time they get rid of one, he takes one out. So it kind of gives you an idea of how many people he has to eliminate before he becomes king. And it's just a lot of people conniving for power and stabbing each other in the back. And Karloff is great in this one. I mean, he looks the part. He's got like a bald head and I think they had like a prosthetic nose, and he's got one boot that is bigger than the other because he's club-footed, so his walk sort of matches what that would be like. And, you know, his physical acting is always top-notch, and he just absolutely delights in being an executioner. He's got a couple big axes he uses throughout the film. It's also his relationship with Basil Rathbone's character is really good because Basil Rathbone actually has a hump, so they don't really go into it too much, but they refer to him as a hunchback. So he says to Mord, you know, they both look down on us because of our physical bodies, but our minds are what's going to take us to the throne. So it's kind of interesting. Just great. Anytime you got scenes between Vincent Price, Basil Rathbone, and Boris Karloff, I mean, you're in for a good time. Basil Rathbone was really one of the best fencers in Hollywood history. So I think there's a brief scene where you get to see him with a sword. Yeah, just fun stuff. Just tons of fun. Yeah, lots of backstabbing. Palace intrigue is the way I'll describe it. So that's my number one favorite. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. And real quick, as far as Karloff performances, I'm going to say this is my favorite because, he's got makeup and he's playing just a really solid part. He's sharing the screen with a lot of other people in this one, though. This one is a little longer, an hour and 33 minutes. So, he still has a significant amount of screen time, but it's not, I wouldn't say supporting role, but he's sharing screen time with many others. I'm going to say that's my favorite sort of makeup job in this. The rest of them, he's playing very human type characters. As far as villainous characters go, I'm going to say the climax is the next, even though that wasn't one of my top two films. It's just because he's very evil in that and very menacing. But he's good in all of these films, certainly. And if you haven't checked out any of these and you're a Karloff fan, I would highly recommend it. A lot of the times on streaming services and on YouTube, you'll find some of his later films like The Snake People. And, let's be honest, a couple of them weren't great. I would definitely check these out if you're a big fan of Karloff. So there you go. What are your thoughts about these films and my ranking? Let me know in the comments below. I'll come back again with some more Karloff reviews. Thanks.